Okay, Pauline, I think we're ready to start. We are streaming live to YouTube. I'll post the link in the comments. I have made a
Okay.
comment in the chat box. Please, guys, let's keep the chat box only for things related to this class. So questions or answers relating to what Teacher Pauline will be teaching today. Please don't be rude or offensive in the chat box, as I will remove you immediately. And I will also post the link to this live video in the comment section. Thanks, guys. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, learners. My name is Pulain Nizika, and I am your LO teacher for the lockdown. I've put up my details there. As you can see, it is Litzika Puleng with small letters at yahoo.com. That is my email address, and you can contact me over there. Now on to our first slide. We started the lessons last week, Tuesday, and we started with a bit of a recap from last term's work. So we're a bit behind. We're going to start with term 2 work today, and we're starting with study skills. So our lesson objectives for today will be how learning takes place. So you'll have to know how learning takes place. You'll have to know how to learn effectively, and then you'll know how to use your brain dominance to be able to do well. And then you have to know how to build your study styles. So that will be the lesson for today. All right. So how does learning take place? We have to know how learning takes place in order for us to know how we should study. So our brains are designed to learn. So everyone has a brain set, as we know, and the brain that you have has been designed to learn. Because you know, when you are born as a baby, our brains already have nerve cells and already have neurons. So it's just that the neurons that we have and the brain cells we have are not yet connected. So what we do is, as we grow and as we learn, our nerve cells and our neurons start to grow and they start to be connected. So, for example, there are also things like learning how to write. We aren't born with that, we aren't wired uh, with the ability to write, but we can learn how to write. So, in the beginning, when a learner starts learning how to write in grade R and grade 1, you can see that they're not steady. They find it very difficult to even hold a pencil. But as time goes on with practice, they are able to learn how to write, and very soon they can't even remember that they never used to be able how to write. So gradually as we grow, they become connected. And then the neurotransmitters that you use the most are the ones that will grow the most. So the area that you practice in the most is the area that you will make the most progress. And then the neurons that you don't, the neuron connections that you don't use the most are the ones that you are going to lose. So in order for you not to lose your neuron connections, you need to be able to use them very often. So your brain will never get tired of learning. It will never stop learning, thinking, and remembering and exploring. So you must be able to practice every day how to study, learn every day, read your work every day, and then you will grow in that area. So basically, that is what we're doing today. We're learning how to grow our study skills. We're learning how to keep on studying what we need to do in order to make ourselves better and in order for us to get better marks and do and to reach our best potential. So we're on to the next slide. To create a study pathway and why we're doing what you need to do in order to be able to create a study pathway? Well, number one is learning. You must be able to listen and to learn. And then recall is the second bullet point. We must be able to recall everything that you've learned. You need to be able to recite it and know it. That doesn't mean you have to cram, but you have to know it. And then third bullet point, you have to think. You must have thinking abilities. You must be able to broaden your mind and be able to concentrate and learn. So, the fourth bullet point, you must be able to reflect. So when you reflect, you think about what you've already covered. You think about how well you've done. You think about where the places where you haven't done well, and then you try to improve into the places that you haven't done well in. So if you don't reflect, you won't know where to improve. And then solve problems. So creating uh, an environment where you solve problems will help you to think critically. So, if you want to be able to think critically, you must learn how to solve problems. And then reading. We need to learn how to read because it improves us overall. It improves your overall knowledge, it improves your overall ability to work. And then calculating takes skills. So calculating is a skill that you need to practice for those of you that are good with maths or that are more reliant on the left brain. The left brain, people will cover that as time goes on in the later slides. So you'll practice that skill. And then writing, like we said in the previous slide, writing is a pathway that we are not born with. So it's something that we learn how to do when we are young. And then that means we should continue to do it so that we can improve. There's always room for improvement. So yes. Moving on to the next slide. How to evaluate how effective your learning is. So, in order to know how to improve, you need to evaluate yourself and see how well you're learning right now. If you can't judge how you're learning right now, then you won't be able to see how you can improve. So the marks that you're getting right now are an idea, can and will give you an idea of how well or how effective your learning is, the way in which you learn. So your marks right now will be able to show you how effective your studying is. So even if you are getting 80s, you can still improve. So if you can learn how to study effectively or what is suitable for you for learning, then you can always improve. You can move from an 80 to a 90. So learning how to study effectively is not only for people who are scoring lower marks, but you can always improve your marks. So yes, these questions will help you find out more of how effective your learning is. So, the first bullet point, these are questions that you need to ask yourself, and then you need to be honest with yourself and judge how you learn and how you've been studying, and then you'll be able to see the areas in which you need to improve in for in order for you to do better in your studies. So the first bullet point is, do you have a quiet study place or is it noisy around the house? You study where there is loud music. I know this is a complex one because some people don't really have a choice. They live in homes where there are lots of people in the home, other siblings. The house might be small. You might not be privileged enough to have a study table and a chair. So what you do is that you can just make time for studying and ask your parents and the people that you're living with for a study time and say maybe organize that between 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock, can I please be allocated this time frame in order for me to dedicate it to my studies? So we'll know that between 6 and 10 we keeping quiet, we turning the volume on the television low or the radio low, and then the brothers and sisters can also be kept busy, or there will be a time for everyone to do their work, and others can read, others can just maybe keep the younger ones busy and keep everyone quiet so that you can study. So it's very important to have a quiet place of study. And then, do you use timetables? Timetables help you obviously to organize your time. You know what to study, when to study, and you know when you're supposed to write so that you can study ahead. So you need to ask yourself the question, do I use a timetable? And then, do you get enough sleep? You know, sleep is healthy. Psychologists say that we must get enough sleep in order to function properly. And also, you need to have a consistent sleeping routine. You don't want to oversleep, obviously, and always be sleeping and not have enough time to study, but you just want to have enough sleep so that you can be able to keep going and be awake in time when you have to study. Do you make summaries? Summaries are important because you can go over the important parts of your work and they help you memorize. Do you write short notes? Short notes also allow you to memorize. And then, do you study every day? Studying every day just means that you are taking a portion of your work and doing it for the day. So let's say you're not gonna study the day before your exam. You're going to plan out throughout your year how you're going to study. Like the Chinese proverb says, my father also always uses this example. How do you eat an elephant? You eat it bit by bit. So when you study every day, um, you enable yourself to be able to cover the work in a pace that you are comfortable with, and then you won't stress the day before. So yes. And then, managing your time is also like the bullet points on timetables. I did tell you why you need to manage your time, because it is important. Time is of the essence. You want to cover all your work before before your exam, and you want to be well prepared. So that's another question that you need to ask yourself. And then another question that you need to ask yourself is, do I use past exam papers? Past exam papers help you to prepare thoroughly for exams. You know what the examiner wants you to answer, and you know how they ask you the questions. So you can prepare how to answer the questions, and you'll be able to know what is important. So another question is, do you use your voice to help you remember? So it's important to use everything that you have in order for you to remember. So you'll be able to remember if you do things like standing up, walking around, if you want to, using your voice, that will help you. Okay, there is a question from Ben Dover. Uh, okay, let us move on to slide 7. Study mistakes and how to improve your study skills. So, what are the most common mistakes that we make as learners, and how can we improve on our study skills? So, making mistakes obviously is detrimental to to our effectiveness, the effectiveness of how we learn. Because if you don't correct the mistakes, then you won't get the marks that you desire to have. So, yes, let's look at the first mistake. When you do not know when to start. So this is usually when you've left your work for far too late. Then you get a lot of work and you have to go through everything before you write an exam, and you want to cover all your work. So, and you find that you're late and you're unable to cover your work, and then you just ask yourself, how am I going to start and where am I going to start? And then you end up panicking. So the answer to this is you need to start right from the beginning. Remember, we did I said, how do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. So you start from the beginning and you break your work down into the most important themes and headlines, and then you study, you go through your work bit by bit, and you also need to calm down and take short breaks when covering your work. So you will still need to take breaks, and you will still need to start from the beginning. Start from the beginning and set yourself a time to end. Use the time that you have left well. Break it down. For instance, if you have 24 hours left and you have 8 chapters, you will have to divide that 24 hours by 8, and then maybe with a few breaks in between, and then you will be able to study. And then cram or study the whole night before the exam. We call it cross nighting. Varsity students know this very well, where you wait until the last minute and then you study everything. You keep the midnight candle burning. You study until 5 o'clock in the morning, and then you take a quick shower, and then you eat, and then you rush off to the lecture hall to go write your exam. Well, this is not very good, especially nowadays when there's a lot of stress. It can cause you to panic, it could cause anxiety, it can cause you to break down. So you can't just cram the night before. Don't put yourself underneath pressure of having to study the night before. You need to make enough time to study during the year and make a plan to cover your work throughout the year. And then you need to study well in advance. So basically, you also going to set a timetable, and then you're going to make enough time for each and every subject. And you need to study way before your exams, and then leave the day before for revision and getting through your work and making sure that you're able to answer your past exam papers. So, and then the third bullet point is when you cannot decide what is important. What do you do when you cannot decide what is important? So, basically, what you can do is you can use previous exam papers, like we've already said. Previous exam papers help you to know what your examiners think is important for you to know. And then they also teach you how to answer your questions effectively. And then you can also use the headlines in your textbook. The headlines in your textbook help you with what is important and what is not important to study. So how you will know what is important for you to study is by using your exam paper, your past exam papers, the headlines in your textbook. And also you can ask your teacher for help. Maybe your teacher can give you a scope and tell you what's important and take you through the important work. So, when you think, another mistake that you can make is giving up to the idea that studying is boring. Studying is not always boring. When you think studying is boring, then you need an inspiration. So, what you can do is when you need an inspiration, then you can think about your future career, what you want to what you want to be. Maybe you want to be a medic, maybe you want to be a lawyer, maybe you want to be a biochemist or a pharmacist. Then you can imagine yourself in that setting. Imagine yourself with a white coat, with your own practice. Imagine yourself driving the car that you want to drive. And in order for you to get there, you know that you need to do well in your basic education. And then so that we can go to varsity, we did cover qualifications and higher learning last week as recap for last term's work. But for an inspiration, you can go ahead and just look at videos on YouTube and see what other academics are doing, the people that are doing well, and just read about inspirational stories about how people who studied and did their best at school became successful. And then daydreaming. When you daydream, you need to take breaks. It means you're tired, maybe, and your mind is moving off and thinking in a different direction. You're starting to move away from what you're studying. And then basically, you just need to bring your mind back by taking breaks. And then when you're not motivated, the point will be the same as when you think studying is boring. So when you're not motivated, you can still do the same things. You can think of yourself graduating. You look at the people who have made it in life, whoever your idol is, whether it's Oprah, Tyler Perry, and we're talking about people who are doing well, who are breaking ground, like Patrice Motsepe, like people like Kearney Ferguson. So people who've done well. So when you look up to them, then you'll be able to be motivated and you will keep on going. And then falling asleep. Falling asleep happens when you don't take enough breaks or you don't get enough sleep. We did cover sleep in the previous slide. So what you need to do is have a consistent sleep routine, and then you must be able to know how long you should sleep. Maybe 6 hours of sleep would be good, and at night, so that your brain can go to rest. And then maybe you can wake up early in the morning and start reading, or you can just do your studies after school. When you arrive, you just go straight to your books and then you start studying, so that when you get tired at night, because your brain does know that when it gets dark, we need to start sleeping now. Unless if you're those people that study more thoroughly in the night, like night people. So then you can take breaks and then you sleep enough and you're able to do your work during the day. And then when you don't remember what you read. So if you don't remember what you read, you must make summaries and you must write notes. So don't wait until the end of the chapter in order for you to try remember what you read. After every section, you write some notes, or maybe after every paragraph, you take some notes, and then after the section, you summarize, and then you see whether you can remember what you have studied, and then basically that should help you. And then, not sure about how you're doing. So you're not sure about how you're going with your marks. You don't know whether you're reaching your potential, whether you'll be able to get your 80. Then you need to start testing yourself. The best way to test yourself is with past exam papers. You do them and then you see whether you're able to answer the questions that are asked. And then basically you mark yourself, and then you sort of like do a review on yourself and see how well you answered the questions. Then you'll be able to see where you should improve and how you can improve. So that is what you can do in order to make sure that you know how you're doing. And then feeling tired when you have to study. It also has to do with having enough sleep, allocating time for you to sleep so that you don't fall asleep during your studies, taking breaks for your studying. So don't overload your brain. Take some time to take a break. And then basically what you can do is you during your breaks you also move around, try do some exercises, try stretching, try walking a bit, maybe jogging on the spot, and just try moving so that you can reactivate yourself and rejuvenate yourself. And then drink water. Water's healthy, and yeah, it should get you through. And then yeah, moving on to the next slide. Study styles. So, yes, study styles. Everyone's brain is wired differently. Everyone's brain is unique. So, you need to know how your brain works, and you need to know how best what is your basically what we're going to do is left and right brain dominance. So you will need to know how your brain works, whether you're left brained or you're right brained, and that will help you to know how you can study, how you can better your study methods, and then where else you can improve. So yes. Slide 9, we're going to check the right brained people. So remember, knowing whether you're right brained or left brained will be able to help you know how you can study, and it will help you to know where to improve. So some people are left brained and right brained, okay, or right brained. So our brains are divided into two, a left side and a right side. So some people are more inclined to the left than they are to the right, and some people are more inclined to the right than they are to the left. So if you're left brained, it doesn't mean you're smarter than a right brain person. If you're right brained, it doesn't mean you're smarter than a left brain person. If you're not strong with your left brain, you can still be able to develop the side that you're not strong with, but it will be you will do your best if you work on the your right side of the brain. If you're right brained, you continue to practice with your right brain. For instance, in the second slide, I think we said that the neurons that you keep on working with, that you keep on practicing, that you keep on using, those are the ones that improve. So what you keep on working on, that is the area that you'll improve. So if you discover that you're right brained and you keep on working on the connections, then you will improve and you will be able to do your best in that with that regards. So if you're more right brained, people who are right brained are creatives. We call them creatives. These are the more creative people. So what they need to look out for, what you need to look out for when you're studying or as a learner, is if you're right brained, you need to be able to know that you need to finish what you start. So when you're studying, study with the aim of finishing. So if you're going to begin a race, you need to know that every race has an end. You start a race, you need to look forward to ending it. So finish what you start. As a creative, you have lots of thoughts, you're imaginative, you start thinking a lot of things, and sometimes you can just stop there by your thoughts and then not be able to complete what you have started, which will lead us to our second point, which is controlling the daydreaming. So, what makes you to not finish is just your imaginative process. You're a very creative person. You think a lot, so you are most likely to daydream a lot. So you need to control this aspect of your right brain. You need to be able to control the daydreaming so that you are able to concentrate on the content that will make you pass. So you need to make an extra effort in order to hand in your assignments on the due date. So obviously, if you get carried away by thoughts and daydreaming, you might lose sight of time and not be able to hand in your assignments on time. So if you're right brained, you need to be cautious of time. You need to be able to be careful more of your time. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to set a timetable and you're going to see that you do things in a timely way so that you can get everything done. So you're also going to make summaries in order for you to remember and in order for you to keep your brain on track. You make summaries, like I said, at the end of sections and not at the end of chapters. You make little notes again after every paragraph so that these things will help you to control your mind. And then basically you manage your study time. So yes, managing your study time also goes back to the other slides and bullet point 3. So when you manage your time, you'll be able to hand in on the due date and you'll be able to cover bullet point 1. You'll be able to finish what you started. So I would suggest, if you're more right brain, that you start a long time before you're expected to answer an exam paper or to complete an assignment. Don't give yourself little time. Give yourself enough time so that you can go through the work thoroughly or go through your assignment properly and then be able to answer everything. So because you are a more creative person, you're most likely to be able to learn or to be able to remember things when you use pictures, drawings, and mind maps. So use pictures, use drawings, use mind maps, use every creative thing that you can use in order for you to remember your work. And then be organized. Organize yourself. Know what time you're doing something. Know how to sit down. Organize yourself in terms of files, in terms of numerically number everything. Just put things in alphabetical order. Just make sure that everything is in order. That will help you a lot. So also write down your instructions. So you can get carried away, as I said, even by one question or go deep into one question. What I suggest you do is, when you write down your instructions, let's say you're asked an assignment and that assignment requires you to answer 5 questions. You write each of the 5 questions down, maybe on top of let's say you're using an exam pad. You're going to write the 5 points of the assignment that need to be covered. And then you start off with number 1. Always start from the beginning, or with if you want to, you can start with what you think is easier for you, but I suggest you start from the beginning. And what you're going to do is that after every question that you've answered, you're going to tick. So after you've answered 1.1, you're going to tick. After you've answered 1.2, you're going to tick. And then you're going to tick every question off, just like a checklist. So it's like a checklist. You're going to cross the checklist. And then that will make sure that before you hand in your assignment, which is obviously you're not going to try do this the day before you hand in your assignment, you can just check the questions on your question paper or the questions you've been asked on your assignment. Then you will check your checklist and check whether you've ticked everything off, all of your questions off, and see if there's one that you haven't ticked. Then you know that there's something that you haven't answered. So yes, that is if you're more right brained. So basically, that would be it. And use your imagination, make it work for you. So we're not just um trying to discourage you from using that strength. You can use that strength, so you can think out of the box. You think of examples that are not even in the textbook that will help you remember your work. You can use things that will make you remember properly, whether you want to use singing or wrapping your work up. You can use your creativity in order for you to remember your work. And then, if you're more left brained, so the previous slide was for people who are more right brained. So this slide is for people who are more left brained. Okay, so when you're left brained, you're going to answer the factual questions first in your uh, question paper. So you answer the factual questions first because you not very good with open-ended questions or questions that require your opinion or whatever. So you're going to start first with the factual questions. It's not to say that you can't answer open-ended questions, but you're more inclined to answer the factual questions. So work on your strengths, and your strengths when you're left-brained would be maths and science and everything that involves mathematics, figures, and calculations. So you will do this by, I'm going to join it with the second bullet point by let's see, we can still concentrate on the second bullet point. You work on your strengths by joining maths olympiads, by joining other competitions, and that will encourage you to keep on working on your neurons that are able to keep developing when you keep on practicing that strength of yours, which is in maths and in science. So you can join a maths or science study group, and where you will be able to help other learners. So basically, when you know what your strength is, share and just help other learners who are struggling in that area. And then keep all your notes ready for studying. So when you keep all your notes ready for studying, then you know that when the time comes for you to studying, you're ready to go straight into the work. And then practice answering more open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that right-brained people find more easier to answer. So you need to practice those questions. So just because you're left-brained, it doesn't mean that you can't do things that right brain people can do. You need to practice. Just means that you need to practice, and you need to spend more time trying to develop that side of you in order for it to improve. So basically, you go and improve on your open-ended questions, because you are going to get open-ended questions in exams and in your assignments, because you get asked all different questions by examiners in order to test you in different things and to assess you. So you will have to practice answering open-ended questions, and then you'll need to study in a quiet room, and so does a right-minded person. They'll study in a quiet room. It's always a conducive environment for you to study in. You'll be able to concentrate, and you'll be able to learn much better. And then when you're left brained, they have here, don't criticize those that do not think like you. So we have a habit of criticizing each other. I'm more creative. I'm more in, I'm better with maths and science. That doesn't mean you're better. It just means that that's how your brain works. We're all unique. So where the other person lacks, let's make it a habit of helping them out. And then when your right brain, you can also help the person who's left brain with the open-ended questions and questions that require more than facts that maybe want you to um, contribute with your opinion too. So basically, don't criticize those that don't think like you. And remember, you can always develop your weaker side. So improve your imagination, try to be more creative. And yes, you can try to be more creative by watching movies and guessing what the ending of the movie will be without having seen it before. You read a book, you try to predict what the end of the book will be like before you even finish reading the book. And then don't criticize yourself too much. You can do things like art, paint, do music, and then listen to yourself, and don't be too hard on yourself. Don't criticize yourself. Stretch yourself in that area, and then you'll improve at the end of the day. And we're all looking to be balanced people, be balanced individuals, and you can find a place of balance which will make you a better person. And then the summary. The summary is just according to your objectives. So it's directly linked to your objectives. So it's about how your brain is designed to learn. Like I said, from a young age, from being a baby, you already have neurotransmitters and nerve cells, and they just need to to be practiced. Like you need to use them in order for them to be developed. And then the more active your brain is, the better it will get. And then the neurons that you use regularly will grow stronger. And then the neurons that you don't use will, unfortunately, you will lose them. And then let me check over here.
Ling, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, yes.
Perfect.
I'm wrapping up.
Perfect.
Okay, yes. And then you need to check whether your left brain, the right brain, so that you can study properly. Check your environment. Remember to answer those questions that I put up on the slide for you. And then here is a link that I put up for you. It's a healthline.com. It's more medical. So it answers the questions about the left and the right brain more. It's more to understand yourself, how you're inclined, and then it will teach you how to discover how you can best learn and how you are wired. So you can go and check on that link. And then in the next lesson, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we are going to be completing Unit 1, which is Study Skills, Term 2. So please tune in tomorrow. And then, yes, that will be the end of our lesson. So for more information, please contact Africa Teen Gigs on social media platforms, on all social media platforms. And then you can also, that's where you're going to get your information from. And then it's at Africa Teen Gigs also on all social media platforms. What you can do is also email me. I put my email on the second slide. Small letters litikapuleng at yahoo.com. Yes, thank you.
Okay, guys, just
That's
before we end this lesson, I just want to say I do apologize for the inappropriate comments that was made in the chat box today. That's why I did end up just disabling the chat box. Um, We will be monitoring a bit more stricter from tomorrow, and people will be kicked immediately if you make any comments or any chats that's not related to the subject that you are being taught. Please be respectful at all times, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. This video is still available on the YouTube channel for you guys to go review. If there's any questions, or if you would like to check Mrs. Puleng's email address, you can just go to our YouTube and just view the video again just to get those details. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye.